Now let's finish this lesson with the discussion that you find in paragraph 381. Now this is the second class conditional sentence. At this point you've learned about the first class condition and you've learned about the third class condition. Now if I were you, what I would do in order to keep these things straight, like I did, I went to the back of my book and I just listed on the back cover of my book the conditional sentences. The first class conditional sentence is found on page 68. The third class conditional sentence is found on page 88. The second class conditional sentence is found on page 157. And then you're going to have another one. Your fourth class conditional sentence is found on page 214. Now this will help you to go back and to review and to see the distinction and the difference between these conditional sentences, because they are rather important. And you're going to run up against all but the fourth class in your New Testament, and you run up against the fourth class in the New Testament, but not in the complete sense of that conditional sentence. All right, now the second class conditional sentence, it is this: the condition determined, that's the protasis, as unfulfilled, that's the apodosis. The condition is assumed to be contrary to fact. The thing in itself may be true, but it is treated as untrue. I always had such a hard time understanding that double talk, it seemed to me. What he's saying to you is this: the truth of the matter is not that which comes to play with reference to the construction of it. It is considered to be contrary to fact. The condition has only to do with the statement, not with the actual fact. See? The condition has a plus a past tense of the indicative. The conclusion has a past tense of the indicative, usually with on. All right. On cannot really be translated into English. It seems to have a definite sense in that case and an indefinite sense. No wonder it can't be translated. It's either definite or indefinite. It is a particle used to give more color to the mode with which it occurs. Well, now he's going to give you an illustration. Illustration of how this second class conditional sentence is formed and functions. If he were the prophet, if he were the prophet, he would know. You see, in the protasis you have a plus the imperfect, isn't that right? Now then, in the apodosis you have on also plus the imperfect. If he were the prophet, he would know. Now then, you've got the imperfect there, haven't you? And it is translated how? If he were the prophet. This is showing present time, using the imperfect in this conditional sentence. Now then, notice how the past time is observed with number 2. The aorist indicative or pluperfect indicative is used in unfulfilled conditions about past time. All right. If they had known, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. If they had known. Well, what have you got egnoson? That is first aorist, isn't it? Sure. Now then, estauroson. Same thing. So the aorist tense, as he stated here, or the pluperfect, when used in a second class conditional sentence, it is used to show past time. if they had known in the past, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. Past, see? Now then, sometimes one tense occurs in one clause and another tense in the other clause. Each tense has its proper kind of action. The negative with the protasis is may, with the apodosis is who. All right? Now then, let me give you some of these interesting sentences here. Well, we'll do number one. That will probably help you out. Okay? And that's probably enough to keep you going.
That's a good size.
Yeah, that's a good size. So, but once you get into it, you know good and well what he's talking about. So it's simple. But be sure and observe. In this particular exercise, he's going to give you an exercise with reference to these tenses and the participles undoubtedly, and possibly one or two of the other aspects of this. What I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you also number 3, because you need that exercise too. 1 and 3, right? Because you got a conditional sentence there. Okay. All right, gentlemen, that's fine. All right, take your books and turn to page 166 for our lesson today. A particular lesson before us deals with another mode. Now, this will be, we haven't had the imperative yet, have we? No. This is the third mode. There are 4 modes in Greek. There's your indicative, there's your subjunctive, there's your optative, and then there's your imperative. Now here in this lesson, he's going to deal with the imperative mode. Now just by way of a word of emphasis concerning the last 2 classes, we have looked at various pronouns, and they're relatively easy, so long as you will memorize them and get them down that you can recognize them in your various sentence structures and various exercises. And I suppose one of the important things to memorize is the conjugation oida. You're going to observe that a number of times. And then in the lesson for yesterday, dealing with the matter of the future and the aorist of the liquids, please remember the changes when it comes to the matter of the contractions of the epsilon, the alpha, and the omicron. And what takes place by way of the accent. Now the accent continues to be your key to recognize the future and the first aorist when you're dealing with a liquid verb. Now if you can just remember that little key, you will be all right. And then of course the very, very important thing is learning the principal parts. And what's a principal part? You have that straight? What is a principal part? What do we mean when we talk about the principal parts of a verb?
It's the first person singular of each tense.
in each one of the tenses of that verb as it occurs in the New Testament. So you're talking about tense stems, aren't you? You're talking about the various stems of that particular verb as it occurs in the number of tenses throughout the New Testament. And there's only the 6 as far as the principal parts are concerned dealing with New Testament Greek verbs. You'll have your present, you'll have your future, you'll have your first aorist, and then you will have your perfect middle and passive, and then your aorist passive. Those are the 6 tenses. And please get them down, because how you'll rue the day if you don't do it later on. So now let's look at our imperative mode. Now, in this particular lesson, I just want to give you a little bit of a warning. He begins to do something. He begins to really double up on you. Up to this time, we have had it relatively easy when it comes to the matter of noting the various conjugations of the various tenses. He has dealt rather leniently with you in learning the conjugations of a tense and its particular mode. Now then, is all right, you've come far enough along in your Greek study whereby you should be able to know some of these things. So he's going to surprise you perhaps by giving you the present active imperative, the present middle imperative, the present passive imperative, the second aorist active imperative, the second aorist middle imperative, the first aorist active imperative, the first aorist middle imperative, the first aorist passive imperative. Now doesn't that thrill you? He gives you 3 tenses here, doesn't he? In the imperative. All right, now then, let's find out what the imperative is all about. First of all, before we look at it, possibly we should just rehearse something in our thinking. The indicative mode states what? States what? Hey?
Thought.
The indicative mode is a mode stating something about action which is factual. What is the subjunctive mode? The subjunctive mode. It is a mode of some kind of contingency, isn't it? Now when you come to the imperative mode, you have a mode that deals primarily with a wish. Now, I had little difficulty when I first took Greek of keeping separate the matter of tense, the matter of voice, and the matter of mode. Now, you may have that difficulty also. Now, mode is dealing with the manner in which something is said. Now, I'll try to give you 3 illustrations. I am going to town. I've stated a definite fact, right? Therefore, the mode of that statement is indicative. I am going to town. If I make the statement this way, I may go to town. I may go to town. You see, the way I've stated that particular statement is there's a bit of hesitancy, isn't there? I mean, probably contingent circumstances. I may go to town. But now if I say this, I wish I could go to town. I wish I could go to town. All right, now then, that is further removed from reality, isn't that right? So that's what you have when it comes to the matter of the optative mode. Optative. I may go to town. Now one way that you could illustrate that with reference to mode would be to draw a line stating here's a line of reality. Now then, the indicative will be right on reality. I am going to town. Now then, we could illustrate the subjunctive this way. Make that the indicative. Make this the subjunctive. I may go to town. Well, I'm a little ways removed from reality, isn't that right? I may. Now then, when you come down the line and come to the optative mode, I'm further removed. I may, well, there's a probability I'll go, isn't that right? But when it comes to the matter of I wish I could go, oh, that's a far cry from the fact that I am going or I may go. So when it comes to the matter of the realization of reality, the indicative is that which is stating something as a fact as being real, as far as action is concerned. When it comes to the subjunctive, there's some kind of contingency involved there. I may go to town. When it comes to the optative, well, I'm further removed from reality as far as the subject is concerned. All right, now then. Yes, question?
Where does the imperative fit in there?
All right, the imperative is down here. And why? Now, I'm the subject here. I'm the subject there. You have a subject there. If I say this to you, let me give you an illustration. We'll go all the way through this. I am studying my lesson. I may study my lesson. I wish I had studied my lesson. 3, you study the lesson. Now, as far as me giving you a command, in order to get the lesson done, is dependent upon your will, isn't that right? I may make the statement. I may make the statement like I have for these 3. And I may make the statement to you. But in order for the lesson to get done, it involves your will. Therefore, it's further removed. It's the furthest removed from the place of reality as far as I'm concerned as the subject. Do you see that? So that would give you a fair idea of the 4 modes: the indicative, subjunctive, the optative, and the imperative. All right, here we go now. Any other question at this point? All right, now, what did I say? The optative? Well, we're ready for imperative. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It is the optative that is, I guess he uses that, he deals with that at the very last one, isn't it? Yes, optative mode is clear over on page 212. This is the imperative. This is what we're dealing with right here. All right. Now then, after the vocabulary, notice paragraph 40. The imperative is comparatively a late development Greek. More of its forms came from an old injunctive mode than from any other sources. Now he suggests for you the personal endings of the imperative. Now I'm not too stuck on on paragraph 401. I'd a whole lot rather you'd go to paragraph 402 and follow from there on down. Now, if you want to learn this and note some of the developments that he's stating here, that's fine and dandy. Probably be profitable for you. But I could never make that gel as far as my thinking is concerned. I had to come to the conjugation itself and learn it this way. Like the present, imperative, indicative, middle, and passive is made on the present tense stem. Now you see why you've learned your principal parts? Okay, now then, he gives you the present active imperative luo. Now look at it. Lué, luato, luete, luatoson. The lu-e is the verb stem with the thematic vowel. Note the thematic vowel epsilon in all persons. All right. Eto, eti, etosan. You've already learned the second person, haven't you? In some ways. Particularly second person plural. But now when it comes to the third person singular and plural, it's eto or etosan. Very simple. Eto, eti, etosan. All right? The present middle imperative, luo. Lu'u, luosto, luoste, luostosan. Again, you're finding the omega involved in the third person plural. Lu'u is for luesto, the sigma being expelled and the epsilon omicron contracted to the omicron epsilon. So as far as explanation, it's very simple. Just draw a line. Draw a line behind the stem. And that's lu, isn't it? Lu, 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 lu. Then note your endings. U, esto, este, estosan. That's the way I learned, and it's very simple to do it that way. Now the present passive imperative is precisely the same as your middle. So when you learn the middle, you've got the middle and passive, as you have, which is true for the present indicative. And now here you deal with the imperative. Now he deals with the second aorist. The second aorist imperative, balo, is look at the stem, built on the aorist stem. Eto, eti, etosan. Endings are the same, aren't they? The difference being your stem. Okay, turn the page. Oh yes. As he points out here in this little A, you can read that, it's very simple. B, just to emphasize the point, there are no augments in the imperatives. Now, what other mode have we discovered there isn't any augment for the second aorist?
Subjunctive.
Subjunctive mode. Subjunctive mode, no augment. Imperative mode, no augment. Now the second aorist middle imperative of balo is exactly what you've already learned. Balu, balasto, balaste, balastosan. And again, well, he draws your attention to where the accent is there. Now, paragraph 408. The imperative, like the subjunctive, is always future in time, though it may apply to the immediate future. The difference in meaning between the present imperative and the aorist imperative is in the kind of action. Durative, action in the present, and punctiliar action in the present. The present imperative then has to do with action in progress. The aorist imperative has to do with a simple act without regard to progress. Same old thing with reference to the octane sart between the difference of the present and imperative. Now he's going to give you an illustration of what he's just discussed in paragraph 408. Now look at bale lithus. Well, bale is your present imperative, isn't it? Now look down at the third illustration. Eis elthe is your second aorist imperative. And you will note that it's eis and then elthe. There isn't any augment, and that's kind of a hard one. I wish you'd gone ahead with just balo there for you. But one of the problems that I have found most students having is observing that eilthon is your second aorist of erkomai. Now then, let's put erkomai. Now that's a deponent verb, isn't it? Now your second aorist of that is eilthon. Guess I better write it so that you can help. Now that's the augment. See, the epsilon has been contracted to the ative. Now then, please look at this particular illustration, number 3 down here. What he's doing, he's putting ace on the front of it, isn't he? Or he's making that an imperative. So, that is ace L. Therefore, there isn't any augment. See that? There isn't any augment. That is, this form is augmented, because that's a second aorist. Now then, that's second aorist indicative. This is the second aorist imperative, and the imperative is not augmented. Okay. Well, in the first illustration here, keep on throwing stones. That's the emphasis. Now, may bale is stop throwing stones. Now, he's going to discuss this in just a few moments. But here you have the present imperative with may, which means to quit an action that's going on. Okay? Then you have the aorist imperative, enter the house. Or we would want to say, go into the house. Isn't that right? That's probably what we would like to say at this juncture by virtue of the learning which we've had as far as the aorist is concerned. Now then, he gives you an aorist subjunctive with may here. Ace, eotheis, ace ton oikon. Do not enter the house. Now then, that's an aorist subjunctive. In the one command, it's may with the present, that's stopping an action going on. Now then, not to even begin an action, it's may with the aorist subjunctive. All right, it will be observed that the first and second examples, present, have reference to the continuance of action, while the third and fourth examples have reference to the simple act. In the second example, may with the present imperative forbids the continuance of an action, while in the fourth example, may with the aorist subjunctive forbids the beginning of the action. In the second example, the action is going on. In the fourth example, the action has not begun. Thus, octinsart must be considered. In prohibitions, to forbid a thing not yet done, the aorist subjunctive, not the imperative, is used with may, as you see, as you note in the fourth example. Now, that'll take just a little bit of thinking and sorting those things out. Now then, he goes to the next tense, the first aorist. Now you recall that there isn't any difference as far as translation is concerned between the second aorist and the first aorist. The difference being in the forms of the words. Now, the first aorist active imperative of luo is lusan. Lusato, lusati, lusato san. Well, what have we learned is characteristic of the first aorist? Sigma alpha, isn't that right? And so here's true for the imperative. So what you've already learned is just falling off a log on this. All right, number 410. The first aorist middle imperative luo is lusai, lusasto, lusaste, lusastotha, lusastosan. Again, it is following your rule as far as the sigma alpha. Again, note, there are no augments. Now then, the aorist passive imperative of luo. And you will notice he just calls this the aorist passive, not the first aorist, but just the aorist passive. All right, it's theiti, theto, thete, thetosa. You've already learned, haven't you? The sign of the aorist passive is theta. You've already learned that, haven't you? Same thing here. All right. Now, 412. In the imperative in Greek, there is no first person form. Now then, note carefully the next statement. in the first person, the subjunctive is used instead of the imperative. Do you remember that? Okay, give you an illustration. You do this. He must do this. But let us do this. See, let us. Let us. That's first person. The subjunctive. All right, now then, 4:13. The original significance of the imperative was demand or exhortation, but it was not confined to this idea. The imperative is used in commands or exhortations. Here we've got it. Here we've got it. Let him hear. That's to a third person. You enter the house. Enter the house. Second person imperative. Okay, 2. Prohibitions. Me crinete. Quit. Don't go on judging. Or quit judging. Present imperative with may. Prohibitions. Now entreaties. Holy Father, keep them in thy name. Okay. Holy Father, te raison. Te raison. Keep. That is your aorist imperative. The negative of the imperative is may. All right, now then, let me give you some assignments here. That first one is all right. That's pretty good. Four, 5, and 6. 1, 4, 5, and 6. All right? As far as your exercises are concerned for next time. Now that looks like a lot of material, fellas, but actually it's not. They form so easily by virtue of the endings, eh? Got to remember that in the imperatives there are no augments. Note the instructions with reference to the commands, with reference to the exhortations, with reference to the entreaties, and the matter of quit or don't begin. And that's really the crux of this lesson. Okay? All right, gentlemen, I believe that we will, let's come back. Let's come back to we got time for just one example here. Number 6, Dwayne.
Exelten ha speron tu sperai.
All right.
The one sewing came out from the sewers?
No, absolutely not. Can you help him?
No.
You can't help him, huh?
What I just put, it didn't make sense. I just kept it as he went out going to sow from seeds.
Well, you guys really bit the dust on that one, didn't you?
Let me see here.
All right now.
Or the one going to sow went out.
Now then, let's take a look. The very first words, exalthen. Exalthen. Let's put it here. Exhale. Whoops here.
Went out to sow.
Exalthen. Now then, what what is that from? What's ex-aeolem from?
Erkomai.
Ex-erkomai. Ex-erkomai. Now then, that's a finite verb, isn't it? What person is that?
Third person singular.
And here's your augment, isn't it? And here is your prefix preposition. Now that's a third person singular, isn't it? Second aorist, active indicative. Now is there anything in that sentence that is of a nominative nature, whereby you could have a subject expressed?
Sparrow. Yeah, the person.
Sparrow. Sparrow. What is that? Parse it for me, Dwayne.
It's a nominative masculine singular present active participle of sparrow, iso.
All right. Nominative masculine singular present active participle of sparrow iso. All right, now then, we know that's in the nominative. Okay, the nominative has to act as what?
The subject.
Has to act as a subject or a predicate nominative, and you don't have Amy here for a predicate nominative. So you got to make that the subject of your verb, haven't you? All right. We have learned then the one sowing went out. Isn't that right? The one sowing went out. Now that you see, the went indicates what? Your aorist, your punctiliar. But here, the one sowing, or he who sows, doesn't make any difference. However way you want to translate the present participle. The one sowing, what? He went out. See? He went out. Now then, we have something very, very interesting. This is a good illustration here, as far as your Greek is concerned. What part of speech is that? Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it a preposition?
It's
Is
a
it a part?
noun.
Is it?
Well,
What is it, Wes?
it could be a participle.
No, it can't be no participle.
Well, with the two, then it's a noun.
No, it's not a noun. Have you forgotten so soon the lesson that is back a little ways? How far back is it? That deals with such a beast that is called an infinitive on page 147.
47.
Did you study that lesson? You better study it pretty hard, because listen, he has given you an excellent example here. He's given you a verb second aorist tense. He has given you a participle, and he has given you an infinitive. And you can't ask for anything much better than that with reference to what we've learned up to this point. Okay? He got it all there.
What kind of an infinitive is it?
Well, what do you suppose it is?
I would take it to be the I throws me off. I would take it to be a present active because of the...
I think so. That's an aorist infinitive, isn't it?
I don't know.
Sure. Aorist infinitive. I. All right, now look. No, wait a minute.
I don't know where
No,
you
that's
get
a
that
present infinitive. That's a present infinitive.
Use aim.
Well, that's following role, though. And that might have been a little hard for you here. Let's go back to the first aorist.
It is a first aorist infinitive because the sigma elongates the stem.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I said. First aorist. First aorist. First aorist. Okay, now then. And you know, to just simply is giving you the noun aspect. The noun aspect of the infinitive, because infinitive, like a participle, is both a noun and a verb. Isn't that right? Noun and a verb. Okay, here we go. The sower, the one sowing, went out to sow. Went out to sow. So that in just three main words, without the article, you got quite a nice sentence, haven't you? By way of illustration. All right. Well, that's these examples. These examples are very, very important to help you along with your lessons. Okay, fellas.
You know, it threw me off trying to identify that I, because it didn't agree with the two.
It's the first. Now on page 171, we learn first grade numerals. Remember when you went to school? When you began to learn to count? Well, it's about time for us to get in first grade Greek, don't you think? No. Anyway, lesson on page 171 deals with numerals and the negatives. Numerals and the negatives. They're the vocabulary. Now, in the vocabulary, let me explain just a little to you. You see your kai-kais and your matey-matey, uti-uti, tek-kai. These are sort of correlatives. And you will come across them a number of times, such as the passage in 1 Corinthians there where God has made unto us wisdom and righteousness and what else? I forget. Anyway, it should be, and Christ has made unto us wisdom, both redemption and righteousness. I think that's what it is. Because you've got your kai-kai following what Christ has been made to us. And so many times you will take the kai-kai, and when you have two of them together, one used with one noun, another used with another noun, or such a matter as this, don't have to be just nouns, it can be other constructions, why you will translate it both and. So keep an ear and eye open for those particular constructions. Your vocabulary isn't difficult at all, but what we do learn, which is rather important with reference to this lesson, are your numerals. Now then, excuse me, you're going to learn both the cardinals and the ordinals. And you have the numerals given to you 1 through 12. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Now, I think possibly we ought to pronounce them, and you pronounce them after me. They're not difficult, but just to get used to them. Haste.
Haste.
Duo.
Duo.
Trace.
Trace.
Tesseres.
Tesseres.
Penti.
Penti.
Hex.
Hex.
Hepta.
Hepta.
Octo.
Octo.
Anea.
Anea.
Deca.
Deca.
Hendeca.
Hendeca.
Dodeca.
Dodeca.
Or decaduo.
Decaduo.
Now you can write 12 either way. You can put the 2 in front or the 2 behind. One make it a prefix, the other make it a suffix. But you have to have the deca there, which shows your 10. Dodeca or decaduo. Now then your ordinals, first, second, third, fourth, and so forth. Protos.
Protos.
Deuteros.
Deuteros.
Tritos.
Tritos.
Teteros.
Teteros.
Tetartos, excuse me, tetartos. Pemptos.
Pemptos.
Hectos.
Hectos.
Hebdramos.
Hebdramas.
Ogdus. You'll have to make it sound almost like an American upsilon there, but it's Ogdus.
Ogdus.
Anatos.
Anatos.
Decatos.
Decatos.
Hendecatos.
Hendecatos.
Dodecatos.
Dodecatos.
Now you can see all of those things are going to end in os, isn't that right? When it comes to the matter of your ordinals. So for our lesson for tomorrow, you are going to want to be able to count right through 12, either with the cardinals or with the ordinals. And he's suggesting to you that if you want other numerals, well, you're going to have to check them out with reference to the lexicon. Now, paragraph 417, he's going to begin to build on some things which we have just mentioned. The ordinals have the regular terminations of adjectives of the first and second declensions as tritos, trite, triton. And they are declined, such as the in the masculine and in the neuter, you're going to have the second declension, and in the feminine, you're going to have the first declension. Now then, the cardinals are indeclinable except the first 4, and from 200 onward. The first 4 are declined as follows. And he gives you these first 4 by way of the declensions. And you will notice when it comes to the feminine that the feminine number is, as far as number 1 is concerned, is a lot different, isn't it? The masculine is haste, the feminine is mia, and the neuter is hen. So you have your nominative, genitive, adverbitive, locative, instrumental, dative, and accusative. Now then, when it comes to 3, 2 is translated declined just in the one form. Now when it comes to 3, you'll have the masculine and the feminine, and then you have the neuter. But when it comes to number 4, you have precisely the same. Now then, number 419. You are going to notice in some cases a similarity between this particular word and your numerals. The declension of udes, udemia, uden, no one, nobody or nothing, so forth, is as follows. Now, like udes is declined, medes, medemia, meden, no one or nothing. You have both the negatives, the u and the me. You see that, u and me? That will prefix, which gives you the negative, no one, no thing, and nothing, and so forth. Now paragraph number 420. A negative sentence in Greek may have more than one negative particle. In Greek, the succession of negatives merely strengthens the first negative if the second and third is a compound form like oude, oudes, and so forth. So he's going to give you an illustration here. Medeni, meden, opheleti. Oh, no one, anything. Now, most of us are going to want to translate that, oh, no one, nothing. Well, that isn't just the proper way to state it from an English point of view. Oh, no one, anything. But you will still see your two negatives prefixed, right? So now he's going to discuss with you, and I believe number 421 is something that you will profit greatly by, and just noticing some very, very important textual truths when it comes to translation. I'm going to point some of these out for you in just a minute in light of your Greek New Testament. Now the ou and the may are used in direct questions to indicate the kind of answer expected. Now ou expects the answer yes, such as, did we not prophesy by thy name? And he uses the ou as the negative in light of the question, isn't that right? Therefore, the answer that's expected by this particular question is yes. Now then, may expects the answer no. Little children, have you anything to eat? See, mete, mete. You haven't anything to eat, have you? So when you ask the question with may, it expects the answer no. When you ask the question with ou, that expects the answer yes. Now I usually give an illustration like this. You guys are probably one of these days going to find that little gal that you want to get married to. And as you stand before someone to repeat your vows, they will ask you the question this way. Dwayne, you don't take Barbara to be your lawful wedded wife, do you? Well, that's expected the answer no, isn't it right? The person asked that question, Wayne, you do take Barbara to be your lawful wedded wife, don't you? Yes, yes. Now, just to illustrate this from a biblical point of view, get your New Testament, turn with me to 1 Corinthians chapter 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Now, even though you probably are not able at this juncture to be able to translate it, you can observe something very, very clearly as far as the text is concerned. Verses 29 and 30 particularly. Now, let me read it for you. Me pantes didaskaloi. Well, I'm sorry, I dropped down a line. Me pantes apostoloi. Now then, that's the negative me, isn't it? Pantes, all. Apostoloi. He's asking the question. Now, what is the negative particle used in that question?
Me.
Me. Therefore, the expected answer is what?
No.
So it would be translated, all are not apostles, are they? No. All are not prophets, are they? No. All are not teachers, are they? No. All do not miracles, do they? No. All do not have the gift of healing, do they? No. All do not speak with tongues, do they? No. All do not interpret, do they? No. Now you see, in every one of those particular questions, in a chapter that deals with the gifts that the Holy Spirit gives to individuals in the church, the Bible clearly indicates that not all were to have the same gifts. You see that? Now that is borne out not only grammatically, but it's borne out contextually in that 12th chapter, 1 Corinthians, because we're told that each one of us are placed in the body as it has pleased him. Then go on up with the accounting of the gifts of the Spirit of God, how they're given. And we are told in verse 11 that the Holy Spirit gives to each one his own gift according to his sovereign will. That is the will of the Spirit of God. And so if you run across this particular teaching, which is quite prevalent, or used to be quite prevalent among the holiness people, that if you did not speak in tongues, then you had not received the baptism of the Holy Spirit. Well, here I'm told, and of course we could go through a lot of this particular problem in discussion, but I'm told right here that God never intended for his saints to all have these gifts, whether it be gifts of healing, interpretation, or speaking in tongues, or teachers, or prophets, or apostles. No, not all were intended to be so endowed as gifted men or with gifts by the Spirit of God. So you see how very, very important just this one little grammatical rule that we have learned here in first year Greek is when it comes to the matter of the text in the interpretation and the exegesis of it. So if you have a question, a direct question that begins with "oo," then you can expect the answer yes. If you have a direct question that is introduced by "may," then of course that question is to be answered no. Now then, in 422, here is something that you are going to want to remember. Ume. Ume is used with the air subjunctive, rarely present, or occasionally the future indicative in the sense of an emphatic negative future indicative. Just remember that ume, when used, simply indicates emphatic negation. Now, you've heard the kids downstairs speaking to their children. Now, don't you do that. Don't you go next to that hot fire. And then if that little one is toddling along, someone might scream out, "No! No! Don't go near that hot fire." See that? Ume is emphatic negation. Absolutely no. Now then, here on page 174, he gives you the illustration of what is meant by that paragraph 422 when he says, "And him who comes to me, I will not cast out." You see, ume, balo, exo. Ume is the emphatic negation for the second aorist subjunctive of ekbalo. Ekbalo. That's first person singular. And it could be just as well translated, since you have the ume, I will in no wise cast out. And here's another quite important grammatical principle for you to remember when it comes to this business of the security of the believer. The Lord Jesus says, "And the one who comes to me, I will in no wise cast out." So it's very, very important to have a number of these grammatical principles well in mind that we're learning as far as this particular lesson is concerned. All right, now then, I would like for you to do 3 or 4 verses or sentences in this particular exercise. Let's do number 2. And number 3 has got an illustration there, I see. Number 7 and number 8. Take 2, 3, 7, and 8 because we've got some good illustrations of this particular lesson in each one of those exercises that I have assigned for you. He pretty well covers all of this lesson, I think, in those particular sentences which I've given you. At least I hope so. The major ones. All right, is there any question concerning this particular lesson? Okay? All right, that's fine. That'll be the lesson for tomorrow. Now we're ready for another lesson that you have been anticipating and have observed in a lot of your tenses at this point, some contractions that do take place. Now he's going to deal with the present tense system of contract verbs here and deal with both the eos and the aos and show you how a verb that ends in one of the epsilon iota, epsilon alpha omicron reacts. So that's the lesson on page 174, 49. You have your vocabulary, and now watch your books, because we do need to discuss some of these things. Paragraph 425. The conjugation of verbs with stems in alpha, epsilon, or omicron has been given in all tenses except the present and in the imperfect. The conjugation of these verb stems in alpha, epsilon, omicron differs from that of the regular omega verbs in the present and imperfect tenses. In the present imperfect tenses, the vowels of the stems unite with the thematic vowel, in some cases the personal endings, and forms a diphthong or a single long vowel. This is called contraction. Well, you remember we looked at this from the standpoint of the future and the first aorist and so forth. Now, the contractions in the present are exactly the same. Now, he's given it to you in a separate lesson, and it's going to cause you to wonder, well, how can I tell the difference between a present and a future, such as, remember, krino, and what about philo? Your context is going to be that which is you're going to have to rely upon. So now the conjugation of mellow in the present stem, in the present system, is as follows. He gives you the present indicative, and the present subjunctive, the present imperative, and the present infinitive, the present participle, and then it gives you the imperfect. Now, in order for us to really understand what is going on, you follow your same rules that you had before. Your scheme is on page 178. The scheme of the contraction of the O verbs is epsilon plus epsilon equals epsilon iota. Epsilon plus omicron equals the U. The epsilon plus omega is the omega. And here you have your A and the eta and the U. Now, let me read the observation, then I want to go back. Observe that the syllable resulting from contraction has an accent if either one of the component syllables had an accent in the uncontracted form. The accent is circumflex if the first vowel had the acute, but it is an acute if the second vowel had the acute. Now, let's go back and look and see what he's saying. Turn right back with me to the present indicative. The present indicative. Notice in the uncontracted form, phileo, well, your accent is over the epsilon. Okay, now then, since it is contracted, you'll find the circumflex over the omega. Look at, we're going to have to go down here a little ways. Look at the first person plural middle and passive. Your uncontracted form is phileomatha. Now then, where's your accent there? Your accent is on the omicron, isn't that right? The reason it's on the omicron is because your ending there have 3 syllables. Now then, notice what happens when you contract the epsilon and the omicron. It philumatha. All right, what kind of an accent do we have? You have an acute over the epsilon. Now that's just what he got through telling you. The same thing will occur in your middle and passive subjunctive, phileomatha. Okay, you've got the acute over the omega. Now then, as I was looking at some of these others before our class, notice in the present active imperative, you have the uncontracted form and the acute over the epsilon before the tau. Okay, when it contracts, it's philetoson, and your acute is over your iota because it appeared on the ending of the uncontracted form. Are you following? All right, now then, the same way with the third person singular, incidentally. You have in the third person singular the acute accent over the epsilon before the tau. Okay, when you have the contraction take place, then it's phileto, and you have the acute accent over the iota. Now, also, the very same thing happens concerning your imperfect. You have your imperfect endings, just as the regular imperfect would be for any imperfect verb, but he's talking about the contract verb here, epsilon. And notice the only difference that you're going to have is the contracted forms. Epsilon, ephiles, ephile. But you come to the un, the ace, the a, because of the contraction. See? The omicron and the epsilon of the first person singular in the imperfect indicative active. Phileon. Are you following? See that? Okay. That little rule and that little principle is going to follow you right through the entire conjugation. Now you'll see he's he's doubling up well on you at this juncture. He's giving you the whole system, because he figures at this point you've got all of the systems down well enough that these little simple changes now can be well figured out throughout the entire system. All right, let me assign for you some more sentences here. And then we're going to look at the sentences we assigned for you today. I want you to do number 2. Number 6. Oh, let's do number 5 and 7 also. 2, 5, 6, and 7. 2, 5, 6, and 7. Now that'll help you. All right, now then, let's go back to the exercises for today, shall we? Now then, let's do this, number 3, that you were speaking about just before the class. All right, Dwayne, you read and translate, please.
I didn't get it done.
You didn't get it done.
No, I had to go to the doctor's in the afternoons.
How about you, Wes? Did you get it?
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
I don't know if I got it right, but I did.
Well, let's do it then.
Okay. Ha er Kamenas Pros Amy Eme
That's right.
Ume Penase Kai A Pistuon Ace Eme Ume Dipse
Dipse say.
Popate.
All right.
And I put the one who comes, or the one who's sent. I don't know which one to put, but anyways, to me, he might not have hungered.
Okay, now you've got ume there.
Yeah, he might not
Yeah.
have hungered. How does this take out the might?
Well, now,
Because it's like
what does ume tell you?
that it's really emphatic. Not
Really emphatic. So, the one coming to me, he shall in no wise hunger.
So it takes out the subjunctive part. Eh?
Well, you get your subjunctive from the idea that it's still in the future. He shall in no wise. Okay? Now do it.
So he shall in no wise. Eh?
Yeah, he shall in no wise hunger.
Okay. And the one who believes in me, he will not thirst ever yet.
All
I don't
right.
know how to fit that Popate.
All right. Now then, you've got a real emphatic declaration here, isn't that right? The one who comes, the one who believes. The one who comes to me shall in no wise hunger, and the one believing in me shall in no wise thirst ever.
So you leave out the yet part?
Well, yeah, shall in no wise ever. Shall in no wise ever. That would be the best way to translate it. This ever yet is almost 2 words for that thing. But it's just giving you sort of a double whammy by way of emphasis. Shall not thirst, ever. Shall in no wise thirst, ever. See? Now that's just about as emphatic as you can ever make anything, isn't it? In the first place, you have the ume, shall or no wise. And then when you have popati, ever yet, ever thirst, why, that means eternal satisfaction, doesn't it? Well, let's do a little parsing here. Penase.
Is third person singular, first aorist subjunctive active, peinao, I hungered.
Exactly right. All right. Fine. Dipsese.
Dipsese is, again, the third person singular, future indicative active, dipse, dipsao,
All right.
first.
Great. You got both the subjunctive, you got the air subjunctive, and you got the future indicative, haven't you? That's exactly right. Now then, parsimony for practice, ha erkomenos.
Ha erkomenos is the singular, masculine, nominative, present. I don't know if it's middle. I think the middle participle of erkomai.
The deponent verb. And the deponent verb is translated as an active, isn't that right?
Okay.
And it could be translated not only the one coming, but it could, he who comes, or the one coming. He who comes, the one coming. Now then, also parsimony, pist uon. Now what is the first thing you look at there as a dead giveaway for pist uon?
The article.
The article. The article. And see, the article of both of these participles indicates to you what?
That it's, well, that the word following is going to, depending on its ending, is a participle, but also that it's a singular and it's masculine.
The article is going to tell you it's a nominative, masculine, singular. Therefore, when you have that article telling you it's the nominative, masculine, singular, you know that's what the participle has to be, isn't that right? All right, now then. Can you do number 2 also, Wes?
Udes, dunatai, duci, kurios, dulep, and
Duluin.
duluing,
Mm-hmm.
ton, gar,
Mm-hmm.
henna, mes a say,
Miss Ace. Miss Ace.
kaiton, heteron, agape say.
All right, fine.
Say. No one is able to serve 2 lords, for he will hate the one and he will love another.
He loved the other. Use other for heteron, and it was allos, another. That will make a little distinction between allos and heteros.
Meaning other of another type.
Yeah. Allos is one of the same. Heteros is one of a different one, eh? Okay. What case is udes?
It's nominative masculine.
And acting is what?
As the subject.
Subject of what?
Inferdimi.
No.
No?
No.
Well, abdunatai, but
Yeah. Dunatai is your verb.
it doesn't make sense. No one able.
Huh?
No one able.
Well, that's your verb, though. Parse it for me.
See, I didn't think it was a verb.
Yeah.
I just took it as a stable.
No. It is from dunamai. You're thinking of dunamis.
Oh, itai.
Yeah.
So
See,
that's a present, but it doesn't have. Okay, that's. Let me think for a sec. it's third person singular.
Right.
Present.
That's right.
I got the conjugation in my head, I just can't think of it.
Present, indicative, middle.
Middle form, right?
Because it is a on my verb, deponent verb.
Perfect.
And it has to be translated as an active. No one. And you see that's third person singular. And so your atai is declaring the same subject. It's the third person singular, of which udes is pointing to. No one is able. See? No one is able. Now then, what is duluain?
Duluain is a present infinitive.
Right? Present infinitive. Present active infinitive.
It's an active infinitive. Dulao.
Duluo.
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 I serve.
Duluo, I serve. All right. No one is able to serve dusi. What is that?
It's
Case?
the case is locative instrumental data.
All right. Now then, what case is kuriois?
It's also locative data or instrumental.
All right. Now then, dusi, two lords. Therefore, the word dusi is what? What part of speech would you make dusi?
It's an adjective.
Adjective. Yeah, adjective. Two lords, eh? No one is able to serve two lords. Now then you've got the gar. Notice where the gar is. It doesn't follow the comma, does it?
No.
Because it's what you call a post-positive. Now then, where is your subject in your verb?
The subject is in the verb.
Exactly right. Now then, parse for me Miss Ase.
Miss Ase is third person singular, future indicative active of Miss Co.
No.
Miss Ao.
Miss Eo.
Miss Ao.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I hate.
yeah, that's right. Before the sigma, the epsilon changes to the eta, right? Miss Eo. Okay. Now then, what case is tan henna?
Tan henan is accusative.
Okay, acting is what?
The subject of the verb.
Not subject, but
The object of the verb.
that's it, the object of the verb. For he will hate the one, and now then, parse me, agapese.
Agapese is, again, it's the third person singular, future indicative active of agapao.
Mm-hmm.
I love.
All right. Now what case is tan heteron?
Again, it's the accusative
Function?
as the object of the verb.
All right. Now then, why do you have eta instead of alpha in agapese?
Because again, it's changed because of the sigma.
Exactly right. Before the sigma, the alpha changes to eta. All right, now you're coming along there. That is real good. And, okay, you have any other question? How about number 8? Did you get number 8? You did?
Yeah.
Okay, give it to me then.
Okay, ute, eme, oidate, ute, tan, patera, mu.
Okay.
Neither you know me nor my father.
Okay. I would translate it this way. You neither know me nor my father. What you did is exactly the same, see?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, oidata, parse me oidata.
Oidata is the is second person plural of Whole perfect.
That's right.
Indicative active of oida.
That's
I
right.
know.
Now, you see uti uti, the correlative, neither nor. Okay? All right. All right. All right, boys. That's not too bad. Yes.
I just one quick one, just with number 7. I
All
couldn't
right.
figure out how to put it. Like, I don't know if it's right, but I put the translation of it. No one is good except God.
No.
No, that's wrong, eh?
Well, what are you going to do with haste?
Well, one is, I was doing that so it's emphatic. No one is good.
No. No, you got udes as no one.
Yeah.
And your verb aim is understood between agathos, isn't it? No one is good except one.
I couldn't understand with all
God.
the nominatives in there. Like, I just couldn't figure out what would come where and stuff.
Well, what's he doing? He's giving. It's right. He's confusing you, all right. But he's giving you exercise in the supplying of the verb aiming. See, no one is. No one is good, except one. God is one. See, and
So it'd be like a comma. No one is good except one. Comma
no
God.
one is good except one, who is God. See, and you'd have to put a comma there. One is God. See, that's right. You did get the footnotes down there, how a may and on may with nouns mean except. Okay? Because that's very, very important. And he's put that little numeral there, point your attention to the footnote. All right, boys, that's good. That's good. You want to know about the question with reference to the imperfect indicative active accent, right?
Right.
All right. Now, get your book, open your book up to page 176. Now, in the brackets, fe, le, on. Now that is the form of the uncontracted form of the first person singular imperfect. Okay? Now that here's the epsilon, which is the epsilon eo verb. Contract, we call it contract verbs. Here you've got your augment. Here you have your suffix, your imperfect suffix. Now then, when you add your suffix to the contracted form, what happens is, first of all, you decide where your accent is from the uncontracted form. the uncontracted form right there. What do we have here? Short ultima, isn't that right? Therefore, the accent fall on the antipenote. Antipenote. Okay. Now then, make that into a regular contract, and epsilon and omma can contract to what?
U or U.
Epsilon. And your accent remains the same. Now then, let's go to the first person plural, which is a, fe, le, a, me. Right? Now then, where does your accent fall? On the uncontracted form.
Antipenote.
On the antipenote, and your antipenote is where?
The epsilon.
The epsilon. Now, he says, when your accent falls on the antipenote where your accent form falls on the part that is to be contracted, then that's going to govern for you what kind of an accent you're going to have on the contracted form. So it says, fe, lu, men, because your accent was here. Now then, let's just go down to the first person plural middle to show you what takes place here. Instead of this is the first person singular. Now let's go to the first person, this is the first person plural in the active. Now let's go to the first person plural in the middle. And so it's e, fe, le, a, me, fa. Right? Where's your accent now?
It's on the antipenote. Well, actually, it would have been on. You have to pull back to the omicron.
Which is what syllable?
The antipenote.
The antipenote. Why? Because of your short ending alpha. Now then, since this is accented as far as your contraction is concerned, since that is accented there, you're not going to have in the contracted form you're not going to have the circumflex, you're going to have the acute. He says anytime that particular vowel or syllable is accented, then you're going, like here, then you are going to have a circumflex. Anytime it's accented on the second word to be, the second vowel to be contracted, then you're going to have the acute.
Okay.
Okay?
Now I understand that now. But the thing that throws me off is the stem is phileo and it's on the penote. The accent's on the penote in the regular stem, but yet you come to the imperfect and they throw it over to the ultima. And that's what throws. How are you supposed to know that it's over there?
Because you're adding the imperfect suffix to the contracted verb. See, phileo is a contracted verb. E-o, a-o, a-o. The epsilon contract, the alpha contract, the omicron contract. Now then, whatever your suffix is, put your suffix on the uncontracted form first to develop for your thinking.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Okay, now then, wherever that is going to be, just like right there, you have the uncontracted form. Here you have the contracted form. But in the uncontracted form, to determine where the accent or the type of accent was going to be circumflex or whether it's going to be an acute, depends on those two vowels right there. As well as, of course, your ending, whether it's...
Yeah, I understand that. To leave it in it, can I just come show you here?
All right.
Not that it make a difference, but see, like say you had another word ending in And I don't know what might be another word. That's okay. Let's do okay, is that one of them? Or thing? Or stheo, I should say, sorry. Okay, let's take that for example. It's right here. Okay? If you were to say, make it like that, okay, that's your suffix, okay? Even though you had on, now it falls here, the accent falls here. If you tell me just out of the blue to make it an imperfect, well, I don't know that now in the stem you've got an accent over here somewhere. As far as I know, the accent's here, so when you add your contract, it would make A. Do you understand what I'm...
Yeah, but the only reason why the accent is there is because of the O.
See, if it was to fall here in the imperfect,
wouldn't it change
this
it when
was
it
an
changed the root
epsilon,
there?
it would be like this.
That's because you have a long vowel there.
It would
That's
be
why.
un with the, whoops.
Yeah, but it won't be.
It would be un with the circumflex if it was to fall here. And so if you just tell me that out of the blue, I would take it that it was still on the epsilon. How would I supposed to know that it's thrown onto the ultimate? That's just the question that I have. Or the antepenal.
All right. I think you can probably, no,
See, that's what throws me off. It's
because fait le était, your uncontracted form there, and then you're short. No, this'll do it. This'll do it. Let's erase all of this and see what we can work out with the second person plural here. I think your problem is trying to discern where the accent must fall after you make your contraction.
no, I'm looking at it before you even make a contraction. The accent's changed. If you're to look at the stem as a whole, you've got the accent here. You go to the imperfect now, and you've got your stem, but the accent is no longer in the same place. Before you contract that ending, your accent's changed, and it's already moved over one. Before you contract that
But
ending.
Dwayne, your stem doesn't have an accent. It's only accent because of the ending. So it doesn't stay stationary.
All right, now go with me now to fait le était. All right, now look. There's the uncontracted form. Fait le était. Where's your accent?
On here, it's on the...
Well, no, let's just take a look at this word there. Where is your accent?
Okay, I put that on the antepenal.
Right there. Isn't that right? All right, now contract it.
Ate.
What do we got?
Yeah, I can understand that.
I don't know what your problem is.
Okay. I can show you right now.
All right.
On the board. What he's thinking is here's your stem, right? He thinks the stem, because you would put it there because of the ending, you put the accent there. He thinks it goes there no matter what the ending is. He thinks the stem is accented already.
Oh, no.
And that's what he's got.
I see, okay, I know
Oh,
what
no.
I'm doing. I know what I'm doing now.
No, your accent is governed by your suffix
Yeah, no, I know, I see
on
what I'm
every
doing.
verb. Okay?
Yeah, because I can see.
There isn't, you wouldn't accent that word at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I see what I'm
Accent.
doing.
Okay? All right, good enough. Well, all right, fine and dandy. Now then, we're ready for another little interesting exercise, and that's lesson number 50. Lesson number 50 on page 178. And this lesson deals with a comparison of adjectives and adverbs. Now, before we get started, I wonder if I can possibly solve a problem for you that I should have had solved for me when I took it, but it bypassed me. I did not know what was meant by these terms when it comes to the matter of comparisons. Now then, look at paragraph number 434. 434. It says, examine carefully the following examples of something that he's explained in 433. Now we're going to read 433 in just a little bit, but you'll notice there's one column called the positive, there's another column called the comparative, and there's another column called the superlative. Now then, what is the positive adjective? What do we mean by the term positive adjective?
A normal emphasis on the adjective.
No.
Without an ER or an EST ending?
No. What do we mean by a positive adjective?
It's not negative? No.
That's for sure. It's not negative. A positive adjective is just simply the plain old adjective. Right? And I didn't know that. Of course, when you don't know any English whatsoever, when you start out, why, it's you're at sea when you're introduced to all of these terms. And I thought, well, now maybe you don't know what a positive adjective is either. A positive adjective is just an adjective. Adjective in its simplest form. Then you have such a thing as a comparative adjective. Adjective that's showing some type of comparison. Then when you have an adjective in the superlative, then you're having that positive degree of adjective that is given over to its highest type of comparison. Now then, that we might have some sense in understanding 433. The comparative degree of an adjective. Now then, I should have caught that, but I didn't. The comparative degree of an adjective in the Americansigma is generally formed by adding teros, masculine, I'm sorry, that's right, teros, or tera, or teran, to the masculine stem of the adjective as found in the positive degree. So the positive degree is simply the plain old adjective. Now then, to make a comparative adjective out of it, well, you're going to add the particular suffix teros, tera, or teran, as far as adjectives that end in Americansigma. Now then, to form the superlative degree, you simply tatas, tata, tate, or tatan. That's what's added to it. And now then, your 433, your 434 gives you a column that gives for us the positive degree, the comparative degree, and the superlative degree. Now then, iskouros means strong. If I want to make a comparative of the adjective strong, all right, iskouroteros, stronger, meaning stronger. Now then, if I want to make a superlative out of it, iskourotatos. Now then, I do that, whether it's masculine, neuter, feminine, or neuter, and it means strongest. So, strong, stronger, strongest. Get the idea as to the comparison of adjectives? One, strong, the strong man. The man is stronger. All right, the strongest one in the group. All right. The forms enclosed in brackets are not found in the New Testament. Now then, in like manner, adjectives that end in epsilon sigma make the comparison in that particular way. Asthenes, teras, tatas. Now, observe. If the P note of the adjective with the nominative, singular, masculine, in os is short in the positive, the American of the stem is lengthened to omega in the comparative and the superlative. All comparatives and superlatives have recessive accent. Underline it. Underline it. Recessive accent. Now then, you should note the little footnote, number 3. Sometimes odoros instead of odoros is used and vice versa. Now then, he suggested the stem from which the comparative is formed may be also an adverb. Hex, which is hexodoros, ana, up above, or on odoros, high or higher, up above or higher. Now then, with the here are some little rules that you ought to remember when it comes to the matter of comparison. With the comparative degree, the ablative is commonly used to express the standard of comparison. Now let's look at this particular illustration to find out what he's saying. The foolishness of God is wiser. See? So, photoron is wiser. Now then, what case is ton anthropon? What case is that? That's ablative. See, the foolishness of God is wiser than men. So what he's doing here is you have simply comparison shown and how it is formed. You have the comparative with the ablative. Now then, notice paragraph 438. The comparative may be followed by a, which means than. Then the standard of comparison is in the same case as the object compared. Okay, let's see. It will be more tolerable or easier in that day for Sodom than for that city. Now you see the little word a there after estai. So it will be what? It will be more tolerable in that day for Sodom. Sodomois is dative advantage. Than. See the little word a? The little word a is giving you the idea of the standard of comparison. Than that city. Than that city. A is used also in comparison of clauses. All right, now the superlative form is rare in the New Testament. When it occurs, it generally has not the true superlative sense, but the elative sense of very or exceedingly. Very or exceedingly. In the New Testament, the comparative with the article generally forms the peculiar functions of the superlative. So when you have a comparative with the article, you usually talk about the superlative, such as ha de mek radaros. What have you got? You've got the article, haven't you? All right. The least in the kingdom of heaven. The least. The least. So that is showing you the superlative. Now adverbs are made from adjectives also. Note carefully the following example. Okay, he gives you the positive. Accurately. Now the more accurate, most accurate. Now the adjective is acrabe. Acrabe. Now the adverb is acrabos. One of the ways that I have found to be rather telling for me when it comes to the adverbs is that the adverb usually, not always, absolutely not always, usually has the os ending. See? The os ending. Now I couldn't for the life of me make much out of adverbs until I did some more study. Now the adverbs do something. and you're going to discover this as far as your second year Greek is concerned, second and third year particularly. What does the adverb do?
Describes a verb or adds to it.
What does the adjective do?
Modifies the noun.
Yeah, generally speaking, an adverb usually modifies the verb. Now, whereas the adjective is going to describe or modify the noun, the adverb involves modification of an action, doesn't it? And I like to think of it as an adverb showing the finesse of the action. In other words, it is sort of the fine cutting edge of the action, where it's giving you the fine edge of truth that only an adverb can do. A verb expresses some kind of action. Now, to make that action kind of live in a very pictorial way, the adverb comes along and just sort of puts salt and pepper on it. I now observe what he said here. The positive degree of the adverb is made by adding the ablative ending os to the adjective stem. Now we've pointed out the adjective akribē. Now then, it's akribos. In a mechanical way, the positive degree of the adverb is formed from the positive degree of adjective by changing final nu of the ablative plural neuter to sigma and retaining the accent of the adjective. Well, he's given you an explanation that you may or may not remember, and I don't think it's a great deal of help, but you might find it so. The comparative of the adverb in the neuter singular accusative of is the neuter singular accusative of the adjective. The superlative of the adverb is the neuter plural accusative of the superlative of the adjective. So all you have to do is just remember that the neuter singular and the neuter plural accusatives have a big bearing when it comes to the matter of the comparatives. Now probably 441 and 442 will give you more help than most of the other discussions along certain lines as hade, hede, hoide. Hade, hede, hoide are used demonstratively to refer to persons already mentioned in an oblique case. Now, what in the world do we mean oblique case? What is an oblique case?
Everything other than the nominative.
Everything other than the nominative. All right, now then, let's see if we can find out what in the world he's talking about here. And again, Pilate spoke to them, wishing to release Jesus, period. But they shouted, saying, crucify him, crucify him, crucify her, crucify him. Now you see the hoide? But they. The hoide is referring back to those to whom Pilate spoke. And so we say you've got a demonstratively or a demonstrative expression, but they, referring to them in referring to the autos, okay? Hoide refers to the autos, as he states there. Now 442, in comparisons, malon, more rather, and a are used with a positive degree. So you've got several ways to show comparisons. You've got the positive degree made into a comparison. Then you have a comparison used with ablative. Then you have a comparison used with a. And then you have malon and a used with a positive. So there are 4 ways that he's expressed for you to show comparison in this lesson. And it'll be good to hang on to it. All right, now then, let me give you some sentences to do here, and then we will call it quits for this time. Number 3. Number 5 and number 6. Okay? Those 3. 3, 5, and 6. Now that takes us through this particular lesson, where now we should have review for the last 5 lessons. Okay?